I saw it go from dead of winter to now the spring kicking in full gear hot in February.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Real Estate AF, episode 2. I'm Aaron.
And I'm Francesca. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the current market for buyers and sellers, touch on the buyer and seller process, and then share some stories that Aaron and I have been experiencing the past couple days.
Yeah. So we just wanted to dive into the current market and kind of just some of the challenges that people are seeing, whether it's on the buy side or the sell side. So, Francesca, can you go over maybe what sellers are seeing at the moment in terms of what could be good, what could be bad?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in today's market, the spring has hit very quickly, even though it is still just February. On the seller's side of things right now, it's really hard to nitpick at negative things because, again, in a seller's market, they're always getting more money for their home because people are writing multiple offers. They are getting better terms on their end. So there's not much negotiating happen. It's more so it's in their favor. Yeah. The only downside for sellers right now is once they sell, where are they going? Yeah. And that's the most common question we get when sellers are thinking of selling. They love the idea of getting a lot for their home, but they don't know where they're going to go.
It goes into that inventory problem that we have.
Exactly.
It's not necessarily the inventory. We're getting more listings this year, but they're still going so fast. So that's the problem that sellers are running into.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gotcha. Well, I would say for the sellers that are selling their house, are they experiencing any issues throughout that process where maybe they have someone and they accepted their offer, but are you seeing a lot of canceled contracts? What are you seeing out there?
Because sellers can't find a place? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
I would say no, because a lot of sellers they're able to either do a leaseback. So they have a place. What a leaseback is let's say I'm a seller, Aaron is the buyer. On closing day, we close. It's his home now. He is the current owner, and I am just paying a rent price to him, whatever that rent price was negotiated, until either I find a place or let's say we agreed upon like a 2-month thing or something like that.
Exactly.
So a lot of people are doing that. Some people are just blessed and they're able to move in with parents, grandparents, whatever it is. I haven't seen a canceled contract because a seller couldn't find a home yet, though.
Okay.
How about you?
No, I would say, if anything, sometimes buyers get cold feet.
100%. Yeah.
So that goes into the buy side where the market moves so fast that you feel like you have to jump on everything. And then maybe once you did jump on something and you got it, well, now you had that extra time to kind of think over everything, and you realize how fast that just moved for you, and now you're not in that position where you feel comfortable moving forward on purchasing this home. So I think it's just the cold feet where they're just not ready, or like they're not prepared to fully jump on board with how fast the process is at the moment. I think that's a big struggle of buyers right now.
And I think a really big helpful tip is going to be towards realtors more so, and we'll touch on that. Yeah. Because buyers need to be prepared. They don't know what they're expecting unless they just bought a home last year, you know?
Exactly.
When we say the market is quick, we mean something lists on Friday and Saturday it's under contract with what, like
15, 20 offers.
Yeah, and over list price pretty significantly as well. So when we say that there are cold feet, you know, these people are writing over X amount because they know there's other offers on the table. And if you so happen to be the best offer, you will 100% rethink the price that you probably offered on the home. So that's where the cold feet comes in. But I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen somebody, a full transaction just fall through. I feel like if a buyer has cold feet and they pulled out, the seller still has those backup offers.
Yeah, and that's another pro on the sell side, where if that case does come up for you, that, I mean, it could happen to anyone. So that's the downside, but the upside is that in the market that we're at, you can totally go back to those other offers and see if you can still pick those people up and still move forward with the process of selling your house. So I wouldn't be too worried if you're a seller right now. It is a seller's market. You're able to kind of just have everybody come to you and let your realtor do the negotiating and do all the work. And hopefully your house is sold by the end of the weekend.
Seriously, it's pretty on the sale side right now. Buy side, it's a little more tricky.
Yeah. I think for the buy side, we were touching on it. So many offers are going in, and that's tricky when you're a buyer because you have so much competition that you do have to go over list price. You have to come up with creative terms to get your offer accepted, and that's tough when you don't necessarily understand all of it sometimes.
Right. You need to understand like down to the T of every term and how you can strengthen your offer. Talking about other terms and how to strengthen your offer, what ways do you usually guide your buyers to say, hey, let's add this under these terms for the contract?
Yeah, I think that people are getting creative right now where it doesn't just come down to price. It comes down to asking the sellers what kind of terms they're looking for, meeting those terms. So whether it's sales date, whether it's including or excluding certain parts of the house, or getting down into the contract terms where typically taxes are going to be prorated at like 105. Maybe if you go lower on the tax prorations, the sellers are paying less in their taxes once they sell. If they don't have a place to go right away when they sell, we talked about that leaseback option where if I'm the buyer, I go to her and say, I want your house and I'm okay if you need to live there for a month or two. She'll rent back from me. Sometimes buyers are getting creative and not actually asking for any rent back, which is...
I've done that on 2 out of 3 of my leasebacks.
Have you?
Yeah. One of them was 0, like rent free, and then the other one was only, I believe it was $150 for the month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically 0, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think, and then getting into some additional addendums, there is escalation riders, which is basically a additional contract to say, here's our initial starting price.
Let's give numbers while you say this.
Yeah.
So let's say
easy numbers. Let's say our initial offer is $100,000. We're willing to go up to $115,000. That's the escalation. There's a few terms where you can kind of protect yourself as a buyer and say, that's the max I will go up to, or you can write an undisclosed amount and offer $1,000 or $2,000 over the next highest offer. Some buyers don't trust that process necessarily, and realtors have we have the obligation to you to get that other offer before we accept the escalation clause from the sellers. Do you want to touch on that more?
The escalation clause?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's kind of hard if we're not in front of a paper and showing the buyers, I think, or just showing the audience. A lot of people don't like using it, and I know I do like using it a lot, especially if the escalation is a significant amount. I know you don't really love using it. You'd rather just put your best offer forward and just hope for the best, right?
Yeah, because there's the highest and best thing that is going around, and when on the sell side, maybe you have to negotiate those terms back and forth. It's a little bit more time.
Right.
But for when you're using it.
Yeah, so for escalation rider, I try to always put our best offer forward first. But if we know the market or the other offers are really competitive, we'll do, like Aaron was saying, $100,000. Let's say that's the offer, our original offer, and then there's multiple offers. We're guessing somebody's going to go up to, let's say, just 110. Our escalation is going to max out at that 115, but we're only going to go 1,000 over the highest offer. So let's say 110 is the highest offer. We're going to ask that list agent to provide us with that offer showing the 110. And we're going to go back to our buyers and say, hey, like there's this offer for 110. Do you want to go to 111? Do you want to go to 112? Up to that 115 price point. Right. And it helps 100%, especially if there's an offer significantly amount the original offer you have. But also, you should be putting your best offer forward too. Yeah, you have to read the list agent. I think once you call up the list agent, try and see. They can't disclose the amount or the terms, or the price amount or the terms of the other offers, but you can get a feel for what they are on the phone.
Yeah, I think when I'm talking to listing agents when I'm presenting an offer, if I try to throw out the numbers, actually throw out the terms and just kind of get the response.
Yep. That's always really good.
Yeah, and just to see, okay, if it wasn't like a super positive response, well, I know we might be lacking in some terms, but at the end of the day, you have to be representing your buyer to the best of your ability and what they're comfortable with. But if you feel like there's something you can be stronger on based on the listing agent's response, you can definitely go back to your buyer and say, like, hey, I think we can definitely strengthen in some other areas. So kind of touching on going so high over the list price, it gets a little challenging for banks to approve if you're financing.
Correct.
So there's another addendum called an appraisal gap.
And we should explain this slowly, I think, because it was tricky for me to even learn in the beginning of my career. So easy numbers again. Let's do that.
Okay, easy numbers. So let's say $100,000 is the purchase price.
Yep.
And you went to, we'll just keep it at $100,000 actually. Let's say you bought the property for $100,000, but it only appraises for, let's say, 90. If you had an appraisal gap to say, I will cover $10,000 of the appraised value, then that would be all cash that you would be appraising from, or that you would be
paying out of pocket
to the sellers to say that you're still matching the purchase price. It doesn't have to always cover the full gap. So let's say if it appraised at $90,000 again, but you only had a $5,000 appraisal gap, then you would only be responsible for $95,000. But
$5,000 to reach the $95,000. Yep.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
The additional $5,000 out of pocket, and the loan amount is now only $90,000. The bank will only give the loan of the appraised value. Yep. So that's the tricky part when you go so high over. It has to appraise at that purchase price still.
Right. And with the $5K example he just gave, that rest of the $5K of meeting all the way up to the $100,000 offer, in the appraisal gap addendum, the sellers basically are just biting the bullet on that $5K. They're not going to be making.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to, if it appraises low, you have to be able to go back to your attorneys and hopefully negotiate it to make sure that you can still move forward with it.
Right.
Yeah, the sellers do have to be okay with it still.
Yeah.
Now, I know we talked a lot about the challenges for buyers and sellers. We touched on a little bit of the positives for sellers, but
all of the positives for sellers.
Right. Yeah. I wanted to kind of touch on some of the positives for buyers as well.
Yeah,
Can you
absolutely.
tell me some of that?
Yeah. So, I mean, coming from the winter to spring market, we're obviously seeing an increase in inventory. So that's good for buyers. They're seeing way more on the market than what they were. Now it's not a crazy amount versus, 4 or 5 years ago, but it's still an increase from a couple months ago.
Yeah. Do you think, I mean, as far as having to pay so high, I mean, what's the benefit of that? I mean, are you still getting your money's worth, or?
Absolutely. I mean, once you buy a home, you have equity in that home immediately. And just throughout the years of home ownership, you always have that equity and you're building your equity. So I think obviously getting in a home is always beneficial on your end.
Right. And I think you have to have a good process to get into the home, right?
Yeah, I think right now the biggest thing is like buyers have to find a good realtor to set the standard, explain the process, like breaking it down one step at a time. And I don't think a lot of people have that representation. And so they're jumping into the market and not understanding how they can be a good buyer and honestly just the strongest buyer.
Yeah. I mean, the way I look at it is you wouldn't trust someone to do your taxes that you haven't met before, or at least had a conversation with, to go over exactly what they're doing for you. And I think realtors should be the same way.
100%.
In treating their clients that way. And the clients have to be open to it, of course.
Right.
But, I mean, the client should know that if the realtor is going to take that 1 hour or 2 hours out of the day to go over that process, it's going to benefit you to know how to present strong offers and how to make sure that you're getting your money's worth too.
Right, because it's hard to get anything under list price, but you want to make sure you're buying the right home for the lowest amount possible. Like you want to just feel secure in your realtor and your knowledge. You don't need to know as much as your realtor. Obviously, you're not gonna, but as long as they can have like a good understanding and grasp on the market.
Yeah.
When you first get a new buyer, Do you sit them down for a consultation to explain all this? Like, what do you do?
It's different because it's different for every client.
Okay.
Because sometimes the best thing to like build a strong connection is just go out and show a house or two. But I try not to do anything more than that if they're not in the position to, because first, they don't know what they're really looking for yet.
Right.
They're trying to figure out exactly what they're looking for by going out. And then two, it's not beneficial to you because you know that they're not going to be putting in any offers. So what I try to do is have a buyer interview, go over the entire process for them before looking at homes. So that would include getting financing, going over your search criteria, and then just kind of weighing the pros and cons of what we're going to see. And then now we're going to be showing homes. We're going to be in competition with other buyers. I have to coach them up on how to write strong offers. This is still, pre getting under contract.
Right.
You have to kind of go over all those terms that we were talking about earlier and really set them up for success and to the best of your ability and to the most of their comfort level,
right,
of course. And then, okay, now you're in their house, or you got them, their offer accepted. They don't know what to do again.
Yeah, there's just so many different layers that you have to prep them for.
Yeah, so all right, go over about getting under contract. What happens next after that?
It's, again, so different, especially with what terms you wrote on the contract. Right now we're seeing a lot of as is. Okay. So basically once you go under contract, within the first 1 to 3 days, whatever you wrote on the contract is when you submit earnest money. Yeah. What earnest money is, usually 1%.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually 1% of the purchase price, and it's just in good faith. It's not going to the seller. It's going to an escrow account, either with attorneys or the bank, and it's usually, again, if the home is $100,000, it's going to be a $1,000 check called earnest money, and then they hold that until closing day, and it goes towards your closing costs or down payment. So that's the first thing that happens. Second thing that happens is going to be your inspection. Usually, and 100% of the time, your realtor should have an inspector, but you get an inspection done if you do either as is, or if you're not putting any terms to that. The only time you can't get an inspection done is if you completely waive it, which is starting to be written on offers now, which is very scary. I don't like to go in and waive a property or waive an inspection on a property.
I try not to advise that, but sometimes, depending on the property and the condition, you can feel pretty comfortable doing it, but you never know what's behind the walls and anything else. So that's why we talk about as is. That clause basically says we'll take the house as it stands. We're not going to ask you to do anything, but we'll still allow an inspection. That's the way most people should do it. Mm-hmm. Just because if you do waive the inspection, now you can come into the house and all of a sudden the foundation's cracked behind the walls. There's leaks everywhere. There's electrical issues. It could go on.
A million things that you don't know what's wrong with it until you get that inspection done.
Right, exactly. So that's just the safety blanket of the inspection.
Yeah,
and then it can cover you in attorney review as well.
Right. So as is obviously you'd rather go in with no terms on that. Right. But if you can, as is really good because you still get the inspection. You can't ask for anything to be fixed, but let's say you find something really bad and it's just out of your pocket and budget to fix when you eventually do get in the home. You can pull out of that offer within that attorney review period, which is usually 5 days from when the offer is accepted. So it saves you in that way. And also it's just a report. So when you move into the home, let's say there's some things here and there, like a light bulb's out or whatever, small things
to fix later.
Exactly. It's just a list for you to eventually do. So that's the next thing is the inspection. And then you talk with your attorneys. Again, your realtor should have an attorney unless you have somebody that you know, a real estate attorney. And during that process, they'll talk about the terms of the contract, make sure you understand everything, and negotiate with the list agent to make sure, or the list attorney to make sure everything is good to go and we're all on track and moving forward with the purchase of the home.
Yeah, and also going over like some of your financing terms and stuff like that. The attorney will do just to make sure everything's squared away. Mm. And then, I guess
I was just going to say after that is when the appraisal sent out. Then.
Yes. Yeah. That's when appraisal gets sent out. The bank or whatever loan company you're using sends an appraiser out to appraise the value of the home. That has to come back. That's for the buyer, by the way. The buyer actually does want it to appraise to have that full purchase price amount so that everything can be good to go. If it doesn't, then their loan is only good for the appraised value and not the purchase price.
Right.
I guess it helps.
Everybody wants the home to appraise.
Yeah,
to
I guess
make it
I was going to
easy.
say. I guess it helps the sellers too because then now their home is if their home is appraised less, well then they're going to be getting less money.
Yeah.
So after that, I think you have to be thinking about homeowners insurance, getting quotes for that. A lot of times people forget about it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't come up until way later.
Yeah.
Or something.
Getting utilities transferred over, set for move-in day on closing day. So there's little things here and there that you prep your buyers for usually once you get under contract, just so they're prepared for everything. But all the little detailed things I think I usually touch on after the attorney review period's done.
Yeah. Going into like some of the little detail stuff. You have your other two partners in the transaction, the lender and the attorney.
Correct.
The lender's going to be asking for all of your verification on accounts, taxes, just documents to sign. That's kind of a rigorous process where you feel like you're signing so much.
It does feel like a lot.
Yeah. And then even with the attorney, if you're going back and forth on stuff, or maybe you're just waiting on some of the lender's stuff, that has to get signed. And then the attorney goes over some of the closing documents, so that would include the deed transferring the ownership of the property from the sellers to the buyers, and then going over the title, making sure it's all clean. There's no issues of like liens or anything. And then once you have all the pre-closing documents signed, well, now you got to get the closing scheduled, and sometimes that's kind of booked up because of how fast things are going. So it's a lot on the buyer end. And we just like that's why I want to be able to go over all of that with my buyers before we get into that process, because if we're kind of chasing the process, then it's not going to feel fun.
Right. And they're going to feel unprepared, and it's going to get stressful and irritating, and that emotion's going to fall back on you because you're supposed to, like the realtor, because you're supposed to be the one guiding them and preparing them. And if you're just not doing that before you actually get out in the market and show them the homes and start writing offers, it's like they just don't trust you as much as they should and could.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the buyer process can be a lot. We want to be able to be there for you guys. But going into the seller process, I mean, that it might not feel like that much, right? I mean,
no,
or
it doesn't really at all.
Yeah.
Like at all. I remember one of my first few listing sides, I felt like I was missing stuff. I was like, I should be saying something more. I should be doing more. And like the sellers have so much more obligation, but they really don't. Like once you get the beginning, like you go in for your listing consultation, talk over the numbers, talk over how you're going to market their home.
Right.
And then from there, it's like go on the market and let the showing show and let all the offers come your way.
Yeah, I mean, as a list agent, I think you can be the most knowledgeable and have the most experience and have the most credibility with your marketing. At the end of the day, if the house is going to be good, it's going to sell itself.
Yeah.
Obviously, you want to have a good realtor to do that for you, but it's really. Sellers kind of just sit back and relax.
Yeah. And I think even if it's, let's say it is a buyer's market, it's still, the sellers have less to do in the beginning process unless they're going to buy too. You know what I'm saying?
Or if they have to get the house ready.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Like if they have to do updates here and there or whatnot.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's not, you just know you have to maybe fix something or update it.
Right.
You don't have to know. I mean, you do have to know the process. It's just the reverse end of the buyers where, okay, the buyers have to do this, the buyers have to do that, and we're just waiting for it all to be done.
Exactly, yeah. It's all the buyers'
responsibility after getting under contract.
Right, exactly. And we're just on the list side, and the sellers, we're just waiting for it to be done. That's really all it is.
Now, I think the only thing that the sellers would have to consider is if they're buying.
Yep.
After maybe they're contingent on the sale of their house. That goes into the pre-listing interview where we have to come up with a game plan where maybe you have to buy first and then sell, or sell first and then buy. I think
Sell to buy is usually a little more common.
Yeah, can you go into
Yeah,
that
just because
more?
a lot of people understandably cannot afford 2 mortgages. So you want to list your home, at least get an offer, maybe 20 on your home before you go out and start looking for another home and start writing those offers, because you want to have a really strong offer when you're writing offers.
Yeah.
So as a seller, if I have an offer on my table, I accepted it, we're under contract, and on the back end, my buyers are now like doing the inspection, all of that's happening, that my transaction's good. I'm ready to go see homes now and write offers. So I'll write an offer that's contingent upon the sale of my home. I know my home's going to sell now because the transaction, my buyer is strong. We got through attorney review. Everything's going good, hopefully, for closing day, and it's going to close. So when I'm writing an offer on another home, even though I'm contingent upon selling my home, my agent will call up the list agent and say, hey, although we're contingent upon selling the home, we're done with the attorney review, we're done with inspection, all of that, and we're a month away from closing. We're just now waiting for closing day. That just shows how much stronger of a buyer you are.
Yeah.
So I think it is more common to sell first prior to buying, but you can all do it very in unison and make sure you have closing on the same day so you have somewhere to live that day.
But I think there's a sticky part where if you have to sell your house, and but where do you have to go? Sometimes the inventory.
I know, it's so
That's the hard part that I kind of wanted to touch on is sometimes buyers feel if they have to sell, they feel the need to get into something first before they sell, because that gives them more of that security to know that they're already going somewhere and now let's sell their house. I think you can get away with it because of how fast houses are selling and how much they're going over list price. It's just scary because you're writing offers on the contingency to sell your home too, and that's kind of scary for sellers to see. We have to wait for another house to sell before we take your offer and sell our house to you.
Yeah, it's a lot. What's that called? When you accept an offer that's contingent upon selling, and that offer is contingent upon selling. It's like a 3-way something, or 4-way or 5-way. It can go back and back.
Oh, I don't know the term for it, but yeah, I mean, that's the thing that people try to avoid is okay, now you have it's. I've never seen it, but you could totally have 3 or 4 contracts all contingent
upon selling their home.
So yeah, this house has to sell to buy this house, and those people are contingent to sell that house to buy this house.
Yeah.
That gets crazy.
Yeah, that's always tricky too.
And I've never seen it.
I've heard of it, but I've never seen it. Yeah. That's stressful.
Yeah. So, but yeah, at the end of the day, it's going to help to sell first and then buy because your offer is going to be stronger. Mm-hmm. But if you want the security of knowing where you're going, it's doable. But your offer now depends on getting someone to buy your house.
Correct. I also think it's doable because of how honestly, like, generous and over generous buyers are being right now too. Yeah. So if the seller's like, hey, I need to find a place, like I need a lease back for at least 2 months, I think buyers are depending on the buyer, I think buyers are more willing than not to allow you to stay those 2 extra months and find a home. Even though it is a seller's market and not a lot of inventory, I think you're bound to find a place.
Yeah.
So
I think, it goes back in that lease back thing.
Exactly. So I think there are ways around it 100%. It's just you'd, of course, rather want to prepare your sellers for, okay, maybe there's, the buyers aren't willing to do that lease back, or you might not find your dream home right away. What are you going to do then? Yeah. So I think it's always good to set that standard too and talk about the worst case scenario and the best case scenario, because it is an exciting time in their life.
It's exciting.
We can't forget about that. We're talking about all these challenges, but it's so cool and so much fun, especially on the buy side. I love the buy side or the sellers turn into buyers. I love that too because it's just such a happy day.
And it's a big transition in their lives, whether they're upgrading their home or maybe they're downsizing, and it's those are the key turning points of people's lives where, okay, we're in a new situation and it's a new chapter, and that's the fun part. That's the exciting part that we always get to see, is the emotional side, and get to know these people, where they're from, and maybe this was their longtime family house. And
yeah, you just get all these stories, and it's super cool. You're part of the life for a really important part. Like, even if it is only 2 months, you're in their life for a crazy important part of their life.
Yeah, and that's why it's important to be knowledgeable to your clients, and give them the best services possible. So that's why, like, we wanted to go over these processes.
Right. And we can go so much more in depth, and we obviously do when we're paper in front of us, like computer in front of us, with our buyers, sellers, whoever it is. And obviously, if you guys are interested, we can always do something more in depth rather than just talking a very like generalized process. And I think we will get there one day too. But I guess it's more so just touching on all of the little things that people don't really think about, because you guys aren't doing it every day. We do it every single day.
Right.
So yeah, I think we'll go in depth one day.
Yeah, we'll have a full series on it, or maybe one by one people reach out and we'll go over that with you.
Or if you have specific questions and you want us to dive deeper on like one thing. I know we kind of grazed over appraisal gap addendum or escalation, right? Just little things that we maybe say and we're like, oh, it's normal to us, but you guys have no idea what we're talking about. Like, we can go in depth about everything and anything.
Yeah. I mean, kind of going off of the stories of your sellers and like how fun it is, or just not even sellers, just clients in general. I mean, do you have any cool like current stories that you've seen from your end that you'd like to share?
I don't know about cool, but crazy.
Okay.
So this is my first full year now in real estate. Okay. So I saw it go from dead of winter to now the spring kicking in full gear, hot in February. Right. So I was
January even.
Oh yeah, in January even too. Jeez, I can't believe that. Anyways, so I have a new buyer now, and it was our second time looking at a home. And when we went to the home, I scheduled for our appointment 12:45. We pulled up at 12:30, and the street was completely like all these cars just parked along both sides of the streets. And I'm like, okay, maybe there was an open home and I just didn't see that. And I start walking up. It's not an open home, just all these showings were scheduled, overlapped one another, which I do not love, but I understand if you have to do it. And we got there at 12:30. Our appointment was 12:45. So we were in the driveway in line. There were 5 groups inside and there was 7 outside on the driveway. We were at the very end. Again, our appointment was 12:45. We didn't get in until 1 o'clock. And it doesn't sound like a crazy amount of time, and it really wasn't, but it was just crazy to see. Like, I did not expect that ever. We were all just sitting outside. We all had appointments. We all were just waiting for our turn. I don't know. I thought it was crazy. I took a video of it. I did. I was so taken back, and then I posted it on, like, my realtor account, and a couple of realtors reached out. They were like, wow, it already started this quickly. Because this is like 2020 and 2021 where people were just lined out the door. And I was like, wow, this is happening all over again. And it was a property that needs a lot of updating.
Right.
So that was a crazy story of mine. And it was really cool. I'm going to share this too. This has nothing to do with anything, but a realtor came up to me there and he was like, hey, are you Francesca? Like, I noticed you from social media. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. Whatever. I was like shooting the shit with him for a second. And then he went to my buyer and he's like, you have a really good agent on your hands. Like, good luck with everything. And I was like, that was very sweet. So whatever we're doing is working.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
And people are starting to see you.
And it's good to know realtors like that all around. Like, he's from Romeoville, or he's more so stationed out in Romeoville. Okay. So he's a southern agent compared to us, but it's good to know people because you never know who's going to list or who's going to be your buyer's agent or whatever. So
yeah, whoever you're going to be working with, you always want to have a good rapport with them and have a good relationship. And, because it always comes back into play, and
always
way down the line you can run into a bunch of different agents all the time. It's always good to have that good relationship with them.
Never burn bridges.
No, not at all.
So yeah, that was my experience. How about you? Have you had anything as of lately that's been crazy? or cool?
Not that crazy,
Okay.
but kind of going into that idea, or not idea, but that the challenges in the market. So I have a buyer that's just looking for a condo right now, and we came in guns blazing with every sort of attachment to our offer that we could make, and I mean we went way over list price, and to the point where we added an appraisal addendum because we were scared that it might not appraise for the price that we offered. So we just did highest and best. We didn't do any escalation, but we went 30 grand over on $150,000 condo. And you know, that kind of money feels like craziness.
Yeah, 100%.
But we were going up against 21 offers.
21
offers.
Jeez. Okay.
And we were in the top 3, and it came down to some other terms with other clients that made offers, and we didn't get it. But
that's crazy. 21 offers. You guys went 30 over, and you're only in 3rd place.
Yeah.
Or within the top 3, whatever.
Right, whatever
that's
it is.
Crazy.
It sucks because you're the one that has to go back to your buyer and say, hey, we didn't get it, and here's why.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll if you ask the list agent for feedback and say like, what did the decision come down to, they can say what the term was, but they can't say like how it was better.
Yeah, they can only disclose so much.
Yeah, so I try to get as much feedback as possible to give to my buyers to say like, hey, this is where we missed, or because sometimes it helps if you're a first time home buyer and you're learning the process of making strong offers. But I mean, if you've been doing it for a little bit and you just are like, how did I not get this? That's the feeling that people have, and there's only so much you can do.
I think that's a crazy story, but it also represents a good amount of buyers that are actually in the pool right now, the market pool.
Yeah.
Some people, doesn't sound like this person was like this because he went significantly amount over, and I'm sure he listened to what you were guiding him to do. But there are people that need to lose out on offers to just learn the market a little bit more. And it sucks to say, but then after you lose an offer like 3 or 4 times, that buyer is like, okay, I'm ready to listen to you and trust your opinion and what you're saying. I don't want to lose out on a home again.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, again, your buyer probably wasn't that because he had a lot over.
Yeah.
But
it's the learning curve that they have to go through to understand that what we're telling them is true sometimes, because it's hard to believe that you have to go so high over on some of these properties.
Right.
And I think once they understand that, it goes back to that buyer interview process where setting expectations.
Gotta set it.
Even if you set that expectation and they didn't believe you, they're going to once they start making those offers.
100%. And it's kind of crazy. I thought that new home buyers would be the ones that are like, oh, okay, like they're questioning you. It's honestly the ones that have been in the game for a while or have owned a home, like, because they saw the market at a completely different pace.
They bought 40 years ago.
Yeah, and they're like, I got a 2% interest rate and under list price. So those people are the ones that have to lose out a few times, which they're like, yeah, I don't know. I don't like that, but again, that's just how some people learn. But I really thought it was going to be new home buyers instead.
Yeah, I think they're more learning the process where they're not necessarily, they don't have a preconceived
that's true
notion of what they're going to expect.
Yeah,
they're trying to understand it and learn rather than I know what I'm doing. I've done this
that's
before.
true. Actually,
I think that's what the difference is.
Yeah, so it's pretty much like everything we wanted to touch on. We just really wanted to talk about the current market and how actually crazy it is right now. Honestly, like we obviously realtors always say it's spring market, it's crazy, but no, it's actually crazy. So we just wanted to kind of explain like personal stories that we're seeing just to kind of set the standard. It is pretty crazy out there, so
go over the process and help you guys a little bit and understand it more so that you're not chasing what is out there. You're kind of ahead of the game.
Yeah.
But I mean, we want to hear from you guys what you guys are thinking. I mean, comment below.
Question anything that we say. Like we always want to hear, other side of the coin too. Like if you heard something from us and you're like, maybe like another way is better or whatever. Like we always want to hear that too. Or if you have questions about anything we said, like always ask.
Yeah, I mean, so I think that does it for us on Real Estate AF.
But we want to say thank you for watching our first one and coming back for our second as well.
Absolutely. We appreciate all you guys, and we hope to see you guys more. But like we said, we will definitely get back to you with a lot more information, with a lot more subjects to go over. So this is just the start. We look forward to seeing you guys again soon.
Yep. We'll talk to you guys soon for episode 3.
Bye, guys.
Bye.